Hello everyone and welcome to a game that Magnus Carlsen once described as a game for the ages. The game is from the 2013 Tata Steel Chess Tournament, and for those of you who are older subscribers on this channel, you might notice that I already made a video on this game. I made it some 2.5 years ago, but well, I will put a link to it in the description below if you want to check out the old version of the video. Once this, at that time this channel was still in only 30 frames per second, and it's, the videos were a bit different then. And I received, I actually received hundreds of requests to redo this video in my newer format of making videos. So hopefully you will enjoy this one, as this game really deserves a more thorough analysis. And also do check out, do vote on our next big saga. The first link in the description below will take you to the poll where you will be able to vote. I've checked out all of your hashtag saga suggestions, and I've those suggestions that occurred more often, I put them in the poll, so do vote on it. The winner in the poll will not be automatically the winner of the next saga, but it will greatly influence my decision. So that being said, let's check out the game. Levon with the white pieces opens with d4. We have d5 by Anand, c4, and c6. Sorry about that. We have knight to f3. Continuing development, knight to f6, knight to c3, and we have e6. The Semi-Slav is on the board. We have e3 by Levon, preparing to develop the light square bishop, and knight b to d7. We have bishop to d3, and only now that the bishop was developed, you make the bishop lose a tempo. So d captures on c4, bishop captures, and b5, further expanding on the queen side, pushing the bishop back. And now the most common move here today is a6, but Anand goes for bishop to d6. It is one of the lines that he prepared, and he prepared it very well. We have castles by Levon, castles by Anand, and now queen to c2, putting more pressure on the h7 pawn. Bishop to b7 by Anand, preparing rook c8. At some point c5 will be played, one of the reasons why a more popular move, for example, is a6 there. So when you play c5, the b5 pawn is already protected. But okay, we have a3 by Levon, and now rook to c8 as planned, and now knight to g5. And here the h7 pawn is attacked 3 times. So what do you do here? Well, there are a couple of ideas. If you just play something like h6, the knight goes back, assumes a more central square, and the game continues. Basically, nothing really goes on here. On the other hand, after knight to g5, Anand also has some very sneaky options, like bishop captures on h2 with check. If king captures, you can just go knight g4 check and pick up this knight. King to g1, queen captures here, but this is not the best course of action for black. And here you don't have time to capture on h7 because well, you will also, after you capture, you will also have to waste a move to go back with the bishop, because black will just play g6 and trap your piece, and you also have some bigger issues to worry about. So here you have to kick the knight away with f3, knight goes back, and then the game continues. So it's not bad for black. It's just that, e4 seems like a very nice move, opening up the bishop. The queen might be a bit uncomfortable there. So okay, after knight to g5, Anand definitely has a safety move. He has if he wants to be adventurous, he also has that. But he decides to go for c5, and it's a line that later he said that he experimented at home with, and it's just full of possibilities. And full of possibilities is only an understatement for this game. So here we have knight captures on h7 by Levon. Also, bishop captures on h7 is possible. This is actually the engine's favorite move, and Anand said he didn't mind. He was expecting both moves, so it's not a problem. And 2 years after this game was played in 2015, Wesley So in St. Louis had this position against Samuel Sevian, and Wesley captured on h7, but very quickly he was lost. So it's really a complicated position. But okay, that's a completely different game. Knight captures on h7, grabbing a pawn, and here again, what do you do here? Well, let's see what happens if you just capture the knight. If knight captures knight, then bishop captures knight with check, king to h8, and now bishop back to e4. You grab the clean pawn, let's say bishop captures, queen captures, and the game continues. You don't even have a queen on c2, so black can claim very little compensation here for the lost pawn. So white would just be up a pawn here in a better position. On the other hand, after knight captures on h7, you could go for c4. c4 is also very sneaky, claiming that okay, you have a pawn, but your bishop will not be very active at the end of the line. Now knight captures an f6 with check, knight captures, bishop to e2, and okay, here it's a little bit better. You're still down a pawn, but at least you've reduced the quality of the bishop here. But still, even though the engine might give this, well, depending on the engine and depending on how much time you give it could give white or even black the advantage. Point is, if you look at this position, it's white who has all of his pieces, you know, behind his pawns, and it's black who has here the bishop pair from hell. You know, the knight can move, the queen can jump into the attack, so I'm pretty sure everyone would rather play black here. But okay, after knight captures on h7, Anand doesn't go for knight captures or for c4, but rather knight to g4, just opening up attacks everywhere. Now the h2 pawn is under attack. Ideas like queen to h4 followed by queen captures here with mate are possible. And now, how do you defend this? Well, obviously, first we have to ask ourselves, is it possible to capture the rook? If it's possible to capture the rook, we should just capture the rook, but it's not. Just bishop captures on h2, king h1, and queen captures on and queen h4, and white is getting checkmated. There's no way around this. Just, you know, you move the bishop and it's mate. Okay, you can prolong the game, but that's pointless. Another thing you could do, Levon has h3, also a possibility, but still you get bishop to h2 check, king to h1, and now queen to h4, a very devious move, threatening queen captures on h3, because the g-pawn is pinned. You will not be able to recapture, so it's a very crazy position where white seemingly has to go either bishop to e4 or even d5, and it's just a whole mess of the position. But it would be pointless to analyze it, since this is now a completely different game, and anything can happen here. And Levon decided that this is perhaps too much to calculate over the board, as it's Anand who definitely surprised him. So after knight to g4, he didn't go for the lines we mentioned. He went for f4, just prevented straight out this bishop captures an h2 move. And okay, here Anand again, what to play here? He plays c captures on d4, and with c captures on d4, Anand starts, well, basically he starts creating a masterpiece here. We have c captures on d4, e captures on d4, and now for those of you who maybe have never seen this game, feel free to pause the video and try to find, well, the best idea for black in this position while I give you a couple of seconds. For those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on helping Anand create his immortal game. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, if you found queen to h4, it is possible to play this, but white can defend here. It's not a problem. He will push h3, and after you try knight here, just, you know, if knight captures, then you get the other knight into the attack. You will just get knight captures on f6 with check. So you'll have to capture back, and now queen to f2 offers a queen trade, defends everything, and white survives this attack. So after e captures on d4, Anand played bishop to c5, and this is just where all of the craziness happens. And it's not that bishop to c5 is a hard move to find. What follows is hard to find, and this is what Anand finds. Here, what do you do? Well, obviously, can you capture the bishop? Okay, let's check it out. If d captures on c5, knight captures on c5. Now what happens here? Okay, the bishop is under attack here, so you could either move the bishop or capture the rook. Let's see what happens. If you capture the rook, which is, I mean, if it's possible, you should do it. But there aren't all that many great moves, because after knight captures, both of the knights now control the f2 square, and now there's very little you can do against queen to d4 check. So here you could try h3 to create a breathing room for the king. It's the only useful move. But again, just queen to d4 check, king to h1, and now knight to f2 with check. What do you do here? You don't really have a lot of options. If you go to g1, then you face a lot of nasty discoveries. So you're gonna have to capture the knight. Rook captures, knight captures on f2 with check, king to h2, and then now just king captures on f8. And here, if you look at it, the material on the board is equal, but white's position is just disgusting. It's the knight cannot move, as the queen will be hanging on c2. You still have to develop your pieces, and white is just well, black is in a much better position, even though the engines might not give black all that much advantage, but it's just hard to play this with white, with black being so developed. And it's also not that difficult to calculate. So instead of d captures on c5, Levon tries a different move, just bishop to e2. He wants to eliminate this guy from g4. And now comes the move that, like I said, bishop to c5 is not the craziest thing you could find, but finding two moves that come in a row like this, it's just awesome. So here Anand uses the Tal principle, and Tal said, you know, even if two of your pieces are under attack, offer a third one, because when it's finally your opponent's move, he can only capture one of them. So here Anand plays knight to e5, and here just everything is hanging. And what do you capture here? Again, okay, we already discussed pawn captures on c5. It doesn't really work, but now that the knight is on e5, it's even worse. Okay, you cannot capture the knight with the d-pawn because the d-pawn is pinned. There would be check, but you could play pawn captures knight here. Do you see what Anand's idea was if just pawn captures knight? It's actually a forced mate in 4. So feel free to pause the video and try to find this very nice idea. So for those of you who were able to do it, I'm sure you're no stranger to the smothered mate. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it's queen captures on d4 with check. Now you could postpone mate with bishop to e3, but we're not even gonna discuss that. King h1, and now just queen to g1 check. You sacrifice the queen for a nice smothered knight to f2 mate, which became possible after the bishop came to e2, since the queen no longer guards the f2 square. But okay, obviously you cannot capture the knight. What other solutions are there? Can you just play h3? Can you just, you know, say, I don't want any pieces, can you just go away, you know, from the king's side? Not really, because here just bishop captures on d4. Again with check, king to h1, and now queen to h4. Again with the terrible threat of just queen captures on h3. Because the g-pawn, as soon as the king comes to h1, is pinned. This is the biggest problem white has here. So here knight g5, not allowing queen captures on h3, and now f5. Claiming that white doesn't have a good move here, and white has to play something. F captures on e5, now comes knight to f2 check, finally. King to h2, and now bishop captures on e5 with check. King to g1, and now finally queen to g3, threatening queen captures on g2 mate, and you don't really have a good move. If you capture the knight with the rook to guard the g2 pawn, queen h2 check, king to f1, and now queen to h1 is mate. And even if you try and defend the position with bishop to f3 to block the bishop from b7, you still get knight e4. And it's just disgusting. The knight covers the f2 square. A queen to h2 will be mate. So here you cannot capture it because the queen hangs. If you capture with the bishop, then just bishop captures. Nothing good happens there. And if you try to make room for the king with rook d1, then queen h2 check, king to f1, and now you just capture. Bishop captures on c3. Let's say captures, rook captures, and the queen doesn't have a good square. You can't go here, you can't go here. If you go to e2, you block the king's escape route, so just queen to h1 will be mate. You could try queen to b2, but then just rook captures on f3. It's just beautiful. Knight captures, queen h1 check. You can block knight to g1, and now knight to g3 with check. King to e1, and now just queen captures on g1, and you will very quickly, once the rook enters the game, the king hunt will start. Queen to f2 check. You can block this with king to c3. Let's say queen to c5 check, force the king back. King to d2. Now you get the rook into the game. Rook to d8 check. King to e1. And now let's say queen to g1 is mate if white doesn't want to part with the queen. So after this, knight d to e5, white really doesn't have all that many options. You could try, since the knight is no longer on d7 guarding this square, you could try just capturing the bishop, but it's still just queen to d4 check, and there's still nothing to do about it. You don't even need the bishop on c5 anymore, because after the king moves, just knight to f2 check. And now, if king g1, then of course, I will show it, since maybe some of you are new, you don't know smothered mates. A double check from the queen and the knight, and after the king moves, you again sacrifice on g1, rook captures, and the knight to f2 is again mate. A lot of smothered mates in the position. So after this knight to f2 check, you will have to capture it with rook captures here, but now just queen captures, and now you really don't have a lot of good ways to prevent mate. You could try something, but there isn't all that much you can try. You can't go bishop f3 if that, well, just queen to f1 is mate. Also the queen would be hanging. Well, okay, of course everyone prefers mate, but there are just no good moves here for white to defend. So here after knight d to e5, and it really takes a lot to calculate this move, Levon just said, okay, off with one of the attackers, bishop captures on g4. But Anand, of course, doesn't care about that. He plays bishop captures on d4 with check. King to h1, and now knight captures on g4. Again, opening up all of the possibilities. You cannot play g3. If you play h3, you run into, again, into a lot of trouble after queen to h4. So here, Levon has to play something, and he plays knight captures on f8. And it is, in fact, the strongest move. You just grab a piece, and, well, hopefully you can get queen to h7 check. If you can get queen to h7 check, you're definitely defending. And even if you capture the knight, queen to h7 could pose some problems for Anand. So after knight captures on f8, Anand plays f5. He says, no, this game is definitely not about material, so let's just continue the attack. So what can you play here? If knight captures on e6, seems nice. The queen is under attack, the bishop is under attack, but queen h4, and you're never defending mate. There's no defense against this mate. h3 again runs into mate because the g pawn is again pinned. So after f5, knight to g6, this is the only possible move, as it guards the h4 square, prevents the queen from reaching the h4 square, but now queen to f6. And now Anand's plan is simple. The bishop pair from hell is you know, fully operational, and the queen just needs to get to the h file, and that's it. With h3, hoping that the knight retreats or something, but there is no escape. Just queen captures on g6. If you capture the knight, of course, queen anywhere along the h file is mate, since the dark square bishop covers the g1 square. So after queen captures on g6, we have queen to e2, but it doesn't help. We have queen to h5, and now you could try some ideas here, because again, just queen captures on h3 is deadly. You cannot allow this, and now Levon played queen to d3. But even the strongest line, rook to f3, just allows black to trade down into a superior game. For example, knight f2 check, king h2, and now you capture material back. Bishop captures on f3, queen captures, queen captures, queen g captures on f3, and now knight to d3, and you get this endgame where, okay, material is equal, but white has no moves. You cannot develop the bishop because, well, you lose the b2 pawn. You cannot capture the pawn here. That's very important to this line. If you capture the pawn, then just you just play rook to c2 check, and after the king moves, now you bring the bishop back to b6, and here you're losing a piece. There's no square for the bishop. You cannot go here. The rook covers that square, the bishop covers this square, so there's no good move here. Whatever you play, just rook captures here, and it's game over. So you will not be able to capture the pawn, and if you don't do it, if you just continue the game, king g3, it's just very simple a6, additional defense to the b5 pawn, and after white plays something like bishop to d2, there's no other move you can play. There's just no move. You will have to play something like this, and then you start losing pawns, and then it's just a much better pawn structure for black. Will be a completely winning endgame. So of course Levon knows this, and it's not all that hard to calculate. So he plays queen to d3, guards the h3 pawn this way, and he tries to hold everything together. But feel free to pause the video for the last time here and find the winning move for black while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on finding such a beautiful finisher to the game. Now, queen to h4 does win the game, and it is possible to play this, but it would not be such a beautiful immortal game if Anand played this instead of the move he played. For those of you who found bishop to e3, congratulations, you have just created an immortal game. And of course, for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, because here white is without a move. Now the bishop blocks the queen's defense of the h3 pawn. Queen captures on h3. There's no defense about this. If you capture, still pointless. Just queen captures on h3, king g1, queen captures on g2 is mate. If you don't do it, of course, if queen captures, then just knight captures, you lost a queen, and you are again getting mated. And here, rook to f3, like in the previous lines, doesn't do anything because you just capture it, and, well, there's no move here. Captures and queen captures will again be mate because the bishop covers the g1 square. So after bishop to e3, Levon Aronian resigned on move 23. And this beautiful game was created by Viswanathan Anand that I believe to this day is considered to be his immortal game. And now I do believe that this time we did it better. We explored more possibilities and showed what a crazy game this is, and we did it in 60 frames per second. So I do hope that we really got the job done, you know, at least until we get this channel up to, I don't know, maybe 120 frames per second. So yeah, that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it, and here are the final standings of this tournament. I don't know if I mentioned this the previous time, but just in case, even though Levon and Anand played a brilliant tournament and created this beautiful immortal game, it was actually Magnus who won the tournament, showing that he's ready to take on the world champion. I don't know if I mentioned it, during this game, Anand was the world champion. This is Tata still, so it's played in January, and well, Anand is still the world champion, reigning supreme. But Magnus showed that he's able to win the tournament 1.5 point ahead of second place Aronian, and 2 whole points ahead of third place Viswanathan Anand, and sharing Sergei Karyakin. So he's definitely on the move. But yeah, that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. I really enjoyed making the video for the second time, as it's just a monstrosity of a game. You know, so many possibilities. That bishop c5 followed by knight to e5. Your friends at the bar and the library are gonna go nuts. So I do hope they enjoy it as well. I would like to thank Bjorn Gudmundsson, Daomin, and Jorg Krajka for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon. Checking up on your wonderful suggestions, and do vote on the next big saga. The poll is the first link you will see in the description below. So thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.